welcome to Crying in the Book Club, a podcast where three emotional friends talk about TV shows that make them emotional. I'm your host, Emily, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Jean-Luc. Hi, Jean-Luc.
Hi, Emily. How's it going?
Doing all right. And Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hi. I feel like we haven't done a TV show yet on this show.
We
But I feel like me
haven't.
saying
That's
that we
true.
haven't done a TV show, I feel like I'm missing something. But no, this is the first one.
No.
This is the first time we've ever done non-comics.
Some would say this is the first ever TV show ever.
I would definitely
It's not
say
even
that.
like a TV show, really, right? Like
No, it's a
It's a streaming show.
streaming
streaming
program.
original, yeah.
A streamer, I would call it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
yeah.
It's
But you
short
could,
of.
I guess.
You call it a stream even, but then you're thinking about then it sounds kind of illegal. And I paid for this show.
Yeah, same for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, this is the first time that we're talking about something that's not a comic book because normally we wouldn't be talking about this if not for the fact that it is much more than just a Scott Pilgrim TV series. I would say spoiler alert, but if you're listening to this, you've already seen the title. So we are here, of course, to talk about Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the Netflix anime series set in the Scott Pilgrim universe.
The SPCU, as I've taken to calling it.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's what we're all calling it. Some background on Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. In 2019, Jared LaBeouf, a producer on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, who is currently partnered with Netflix's anime team, reached out to Brian Lee O'Malley about the possibility of a Scott Pilgrim anime. O'Malley was not interested at the time because he did not want to do a straight retelling of the graphic novels, which I get. While discussing the possibility of a Scott Pilgrim anime over dinner with TV writer David Grabinski, O'Malley's friend and a longtime Scott Pilgrim fan, the ideas for a series where Scott loses the initial fight with Matthew Patel would take shape. Grabinski felt that this would give the series a way to spend more time with Ramona and the exes. In 2020, O'Malley and Grabinski pitched their idea for the Scott Pilgrim anime, which was immediately greenlit by Universal Content Productions, a division of Universal Studio Group, and Netflix. Series development would be announced to the public in January of 2022. O'Malley would go on to be showrunner, writer, and executive producer alongside Grabinski. Animation was done by anime studio Science Saru, known for beloved series such as Ping Pong the Animation, Devilman Crybaby, and Keep Your Hands Off Aizuken. Abel Gongora, a Spanish animator known for his work with Science Saru, was brought on to direct the series. Almost the entire live-action cast returned to voice their characters in the series. I have a little minor bone to pick, but we'll get to it. Original music for the series was composed by American composer Joseph Trapanese, and one of those has got to be right. And the band Anamanaguchi, who previously did music for the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World video game. A number of licensed songs were also included in the series, including Scott Pilgrim by Plumtree. So that's the background. I found it really interesting. I actually went and in comparison to last episode, did some real research for this episode, and I was reading. I know, right? I was reading an interview.
Why the fuck would you waste time doing research?
Because it's about Scott Pilgrim, which I care about.
We have an intern we don't pay to do that.
It's true. Sometimes they slack off a bit, but hey, free is free.
It turns out that this whole series came about because Universal really wanted something for they wanted to do another Scott Pilgrim thing, but they didn't want an expensive live action sequel, which I get, and I agree. I don't think a live action sequel movie would have been good for this. And so like they were like on Brian Lee O'Malley's ass, like, can we do a Scott Pilgrim anime series? And he was like, I don't fucking wanna, which, like, you know, I get. But apparently he just was randomly having dinner with his friend, and like they weren't intending to talk about Scott Pilgrim at all, and then it just like came up over the course of conversation that like he was trying to figure out like an angle to approach this TV show project with, because like he really just didn't want to do an animated version of the graphic novels. And Grabinski starts throwing out these like crazy ideas about like, what if Scott loses the first fight? What if they make a movie and it's the movie that was Scott Pilgrim versus the world? And I don't know, I just thought that was really fun.
So I promise I didn't do any research, but I heard that in terms of the cast returning, that happened because Michael Cera responded to like a 12-year-old email chain.
I didn't include this in my notes, but I am glad that you brought it up, because I was hoping that it would come up eventually. But yeah, like one of the things that like totally unrelated to the project kind of boiling under the surface, kind of just unrelated, Michael Cera responded to a like a message or a meme or whatever that was in this big group email that they had back in the day for the Scott Pilgrim cast, and he responded as if like he was just responding to it, like he had just received the message, and everybody else was like, Michael, what are you doing? But that got everybody talking again, and then when it came time for like the casting of this series, like when people started getting contacted, like everybody was on board. When I say almost, the actors who played the twins, even though they did not have a speaking role in the movie, they did not, I don't know if they were just not asked or if they declined or whatever, but they did not return to voice their characters in this series. The voice was done by I don't remember if it was one or two actors. I don't remember if they had two different voice actors, honestly, but it was not the actors who played them in the movie.
If you're gonna have two characters that aren't coming back, I feel like the twins are like,
I mean, I know, but
you
also
know what?
like
It'd be nice to have everybody, but like,
but they also
I mean, they're also just like the most forgettable characters from Scott Pilgrim, right? So,
well, they could have been less forgettable if this series had thought to do anything with them like it did with all the rest of the X's. That's my spoiler alert.
robot.
This is my big basically my only bone to pick with the series is that I feel like every other X got fleshed out and got like a resolution, except for the X's, or not the X's, except for the twins.
They became good. I think that was their. They were reading a book on like
but
how to
everybody
not
else
be evil
got
or
like
something.
everybody else got like a whole episode, and they got like
Yeah.
nothing. And I thought that was annoying.
I will confirm they got one voice actor to voice both
Easy.
twins.
Damn.
Okay, yeah.
They wouldn't even pay two voice actors. Cheap.
But anyway, as for the plot synopsis of the series, this is not as was semi-advertised. This is not just an adaptation of the Scott Pilgrim comics. It starts off kind of like it's going to be, but it's not. The series, set in Toronto, Canada, serves as an alternate retelling of the original Scott Pilgrim graphic novel series and movie. Like in the original series, Scott Pilgrim, a bassist in an indie band, falls in love with Ramona Flowers, a mysterious delivery girl, attracting the attention of Ramona's seven evil exes. Things take an unexpected turn when Scott loses his battle against Ramona's first evil ex, Matthew Patel, and is seemingly killed. As the trajectory of everyone's lives, including those of Ramona's evil exes, changes drastically as a result, Ramona learns that Scott may still be alive and investigates his disappearance. Over the course of her investigation, Ramona is forced to reckon with her past, eventually finding resolution with almost all of her exes. It is ultimately revealed that the culprit behind the events of the series is Scott himself, but from the future, where he and Ramona have separated. His goal was to prevent Scott and Ramona from ever getting together, thus preventing his own eventual heartbreak. Ramona realizes she has spent her life running from the things that she loves, and in her actualization becomes Super Ramona, who is able to return future Scott to his own time and everyone else to the present. The season ends with a montage of the cast moving on with their lives in fun, new ways. There is a mid-credit scene teasing the possibility of a series continuation. So, how did you guys feel when they announced a Scott Pilgrim anime?
It was partly, why would they do this? The comic's fantastic, and it's like, I understand wanting to introduce it to a new audience, and I'm sure it'll do really well as an anime, but it's also like, if you're not going to do anything new with it, why bother? Which I guess they maybe thought of that. Maybe they're smart people and stuff like that, but yeah, that was the initial.
For me, it's the way I feel about all comic book adaptations of like stuff that I like, which is it's fine that they're doing that, but also why are they doing that? I was more excited when I learned that like Brian Lee O'Malley was like pretty heavily involved.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me a fair amount of confidence in the show. But definitely my first response was I'll probably watch it, but especially given the average quality of Netflix originals, I'm not expecting very much.
That's fair.
So,
yeah,
and then go ahead.
No. You keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say when they started releasing clips and stuff that looked like it was just a direct adaptation of the movie to animation,
Mm-hmm.
I almost didn't it almost made me not want to watch it because I like the movie, don't get me wrong, but I really did not see the point of just directly adapting the movie to animation. Like it seemed like a pointless endeavor to me.
Yeah.
So I got baited by the marketing campaign, which in the end like worked out well because it made the show a lot more fun. But
yeah, I mean, I was gonna watch it no matter what. You say Scott Pilgrim anime, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm seated. It doesn't matter like what's going on, basically. So I was already like, even if I didn't think it was gonna be like good, I was still like, maybe it'll be fun. Definitely did not expect what we got. Because when they were marketing this, they did say this is not going to be a straight adaptation of the comics. And when they said that, I thought they just meant that they were going to like take out the slurs and maybe like move some things around or like,
they did take out the slurs.
I mean, yes, but
they bleeped them because maybe they still said them. There were a few bleeps.
But I figured that like they were mostly just gonna like kind of retool the existing story to maybe like a slightly updated audience. I did not expect a whole new thing. I was like on the day that this show dropped, I was driving up to visit my girlfriend in Minnesota for American Thanksgiving, and I was on the first leg of my trip, so I was in a hotel in Missouri watching the first episode on my laptop, and it gets to the end of the first episode where Matthew Patel loses, and like my jaw just dropped because like I was sitting there like, we're kind of like just sort of breezing through these first like beats of the story, but like, okay, whatever, this is weird and different. And then like it gets to the end and like Scott dies and I was just like, holy shit. and I think I probably messaged Jean-Luc like immediately. But so yeah, like I also like bought into the hype for, or I probably, of the three of us, most bought into the hype of the show, and then like was maybe the first to realize that strange things were afoot.
Yeah, Emily messaged me saying, I have a link to the Scott Pilgrim anime if you want it.
You don't say that. I mean, it's in my personal Dropbox, so make it that way.
Netflix.com/Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, that's the link. Netflix.com/Scott Pilgrim.
No, Emily did DM me like halfway through the first episode, I think. And then gave me the spoiler about the end, which made me immediately start go watch it. So,
yeah, because I knew otherwise, like, you weren't going to. You needed the hook, and I
was gonna get to it eventually, probably, but I wasn't like super enthused.
It's so funny because like I know so many people who like needed that hook to actually get invested in watching the show. But I mean, you know, I don't blame Netflix for being cagey with it. I think that like I'm glad that I got to have the experience of like thinking that this was just a normal Scott Pilgrim anime and then like being hit with that at the end of the episode. But it is funny to me that like it feels like so many like actual like diehard Scott Pilgrim fans needed to know that like strange things were afoot in order to
because I think the thing with Scott Pilgrim is that it's so beloved, and it's the comic. Like, I guess if we're talking about like diehard fans, like, but this is true of both the comic and the movie.
Yeah,
are on a pedestal that they deserve, and so most people are probably like, well, why wouldn't I just either watch the movie, which I love, or read the comics, which I also love? So I think and also I think the idea of like, you know, okay, sure, Brian Lee O'Malley comes back and he's doing a Scott Pilgrim adaptation. Like, it's his property. Like, he created it. He is, you know, a writer from the early 2000s who has in no way fallen off. I'm sure it'll be good, but I think the idea of, especially, and I think this is probably especially true for people like us, like, Brian Lee O'Malley does animated adaptation of Scott Pilgrim is like fine on the excitement track. Brian Lee O'Malley does new original story is like way more exciting, right? Because speaking as three people who wait with bated breath every year for a single fucking scrap of Snot Girl, I would take one panel at this point of Snot Girl.
Would you take so DC Comics hands out their annual holiday issue with a ton of short stories, and you get a short story, you get one page of Snot Girl randomly.
Are you saying that Snot Girl is going in the Snot Girl is the Prez of the contemporary era, where it gets its end, it gets concluded as a throwaway, not even full issue in a DC compilation?
Oh, is that true?
I wouldn't even.
That's what happened. That is what happened to Prez. Yeah.
It wasn't even it wasn't even big enough to be like, this is Christmas or Halloween. It was like a Catwoman special.
Yeah, it was like the Catwoman 75th anniversary special or something.
Sorry, Prez. The only place we can fit you is 2 pages in the Catwoman 75 special. Yeah. So it's okay.
I would be really sad if they did that. Snot Girl deserves better than that, and I think.
What if it's a really good page, though? What if it's like, you know?
I'm sure it would be, because Leslie Hung would draw it. So it's like there's no such.
You like don't get it at all, and Leslie Hung's not drawing it. It's the person who drew the Prez one page.
Well, if Leslie Hung's not drawing it, I think I'm out.
No,
that's fair. No, but Ansetti is writing it.
No.
Oh, perfect! I'm back in. Got me with that one. Ooh. I was going to mention this, but I also want to read the DMs that Emily sent me the next day, which are in all caps.
Because I everyone to know that I watched the first 2 episodes and then I went to sleep, and then I watched episodes like 3 through 7 the next morning before I left my hotel room. And something major happens in episode 3 for me personally.
Okay, so I'm actually going to read the last DM that Emily sent me that night. I'm praying that O'Malley will not disappoint me once again. And then the next day, 5:04 a.m. Well, that's my time, so it was 8:04 a.m. for Emily, but that's still early. All caps. He did it. He didn't disappoint me.
It's true.
Now, those of you who know Emily will almost certainly know what this is in reference to, but to shed light on the situation, I can only assume that this happened seconds after Kim Pine kissed another woman.
Yes, because
in episode 3 of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
Because I said the only thing that I wanted from the Scott Pilgrim animated series was for Kim Pine to kiss a woman. I didn't care what the circumstances were. I just wanted it to happen, and it does. And
she gave it a good go.
Yeah.
Would you have been satisfied? Yeah. This is my discussion question. Okay. Would you have been satisfied if Kim Pine kissed a woman, but it was like her mom? When it was like, she pecked her mom on the cheek or something.
No, but that's not kissing
a
woman, John.
Have not been satisfied. Well, okay. What if she kissed her mom like the way she kissed the other person? Then I would just be like questioning and uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, I don't want that.
Yeah, I can go to AO3 if I want that.
I
don't, for the record.
A peck.
He's winking right now, guys.
a peck on the cheek doesn't count.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
That makes sense. I subscribe.
I'm a proud member of the Kim Pine Should Kiss More Women Club. Yeah.
So true.
You were a proud member of the Kim Pine as your Twitter.
Yeah, I'm a proud member of the Kim Pine fan club.
Nice.
So true.
Kim Pine is my current Twitter avatar. Yeah. It's a different Kim. Oops. It's a totally different vibe than my old Kim Pine avatar. But it's equally good. I like it a lot. Lots of great frames from this anime that you could screenshot for Twitter avies.
So true. I'm sure that when this episode goes out, my Twitter avatar will still be a screen cap of Ramona from the episode where she has green hair. Because that I was zeroed in on that episode, waiting for the perfect screenshot to make my Twitter avatar.
So I know we haven't really gotten into much of the show, but
that's fine.
She dyes her hair a lot, and in the comic, I'm like, this is cool. This is great. But seeing it in the anime and how often she does it, I'm just thinking this poor lady, her poor hair.
Have you seen all the silly fan art of Ramona with her hair falling out because she's constantly bleaching her hair?
That makes total sense.
Yeah, I had a friend that genuinely was like, "Does Ramona actually go bald in the series?" And I was like, "No, people are just making a joke about how often
in the
she
epilogue
bleaches her hair."
But it's such a nice little touch to really start every episode and every chapter and really lock it in, and it's
so
colorful and
cute. I really love how methodical it is, and I like that different episodes have her with different hair colors, and so you can sort of kind of track individual images from across the series based on what color Ramona's hair is. I think that's fun.
It's also fun that the original comic has a running gag about Ramona constantly changing her hair, but you can never tell because it's in black and white. Mm-hmm. And then every episode of the anime opens with her changing her hair, and you can see it because the colors are in very vibrant colors, in fact. So, yeah, I appreciate that.
I kind of wish that at one point they had maybe done a black and white or a dark and blonde or something as sort of an homage to the comics being in black and white. I think that would have been fun, but
should have had old Scott Pilgrim be black and white,
that
Spider-Man Noir from Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that would have been fun. I guess the big question is, did you guys like it?
You're muted, Alex.
You
I
didn't
see your
get to
lips
hear me
moving,
say
but
not enough Scott. There were episodes where he's just missing, and they don't even explain it till the end. And then their explanation is time travel. Lazy.
so true, bestie.
Yeah, don't erase Scott. It's not called,
It's
Ramona's
not
evil
called
ex for the
Ramona
show.
Flowers.
I mean,
Yeah,
arguably, he does take off.
He does take
He
off
does
the
take
shirt
off.
in the last episode. That's true.
He
No,
does.
I mean, like he
You're right. So true, Jean-Luc.
he takes off and he's
No,
gone.
I know. I really like the double entendre of the title for that exact reason, that it's like Scott Pilgrim Takes Off. Like, oh, it's like fun,
Like,
like,
yes.
it's the anime kind of takeoff. He's like flying around and stuff, and it's like Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, as in
How quaint.
he went out for a pack of smokes and never came back.
He did go out for a pack of smokes. It was great. But yeah, it's remarkable how going into it, I didn't know the twist or anything, but it's great that this just feels like
as we
another.
I guess.
Who told you? We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about off camera. It's okay. It's just so cool that this has just become another chapter in the Scott Pilgrim universe, where it's like, oh, it's a great addition, and it's like something you can enjoy completely separately, and it like really does well with the themes of the original. And it's like, oh, it's so cool. It's like even more Scott Pilgrim goodness, which is so cool that we have, the original graphic novel, and we have the movie, which is so beloved for a lot of the same reasons, but also a lot of different reasons. And you have the good Edgar Wright, direction and all that fun stuff, and the choreography. And now we have a really cool anime. So, I mean, if Brian Lee O'Malley in the future is all like, hey, I would love to take it into another medium, like a play, Scott Pilgrim the play, I'd be like, oh, that'd be so cool.
I would sell literally any organ in my body for Scott Pilgrim the musical.
They already have a musical, so it's like doable too.
No, see, it's fucking
great.
I was so hoping that it was going to be an actual musical episode, and they like totally dropped the ball, and I was very upset that was not an actual full musical episode.
That's why Emily hates the show.
Yeah, that's why I hate the show, and I think it's dog shit.
I think I jokingly said on the last episode that I didn't like it, but I did like it. Surprise.
Oh,
I have some quibbles with it. Well, that's a relief. I have some quibbles with it, but
sure.
I have quibbles with everything because that's just who I am. Unfortunately, I can never fully enjoy something, but I did really like it. I'm absolutely with Alex on the like. It's really awesome that they told a new Scott Pilgrim story because, as we talked about on our Scott Pilgrim episode, there are parts of the comic book that feel dated, even though I will stand by the comic book forever. I think it's phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And the movie is very obviously dated at this point, but I will also stand by the movie. I like the movie a lot. So it's cool that they did something completely new with it, and that they, O'Malley and the other writers, I don't know exactly who else wrote on the show, or if it was just like O'Malley, but I assume there was a writer's room at least.
Yeah, I know that like primarily it was O'Malley and Grabinski,
but it's really cool that O'Malley actually got a chance to flesh out characters who didn't get the most page time in the comics and are definitely short shifted by the movie. So it's an 8-episode series, so obviously not everyone is going to like. I mean, look, Kim Pine does not get the amount of screen time that she gets in the comics. Kim Pine gets a lot more to do in the comics. We need more Kim Pine in the show.
This had been like a 10-episode series instead of 8. I feel like, throw in like a Kim episode, and like I said, like throw in one for the twins because they literally didn't get one.
8-episode series should be illegal. Like 8-episode TV seasons, we need to go back to when they were 22 episodes at least.
You're so right.
Even if they're bad, just give it all 22 episodes. You know what?
Look, name one season of Riverdale that doesn't have a dud episode in the 22.
Hey, you know what? I'll say the last season of Riverdale was supposed to have way more episodes, and they didn't have enough. and they had a different plan. They were going to go through every decade leading up till starting in the 40s and the 50s. Anyway, we all know about Riverdale. Not the point.
I really do think that, I mean, not to derail it too much, but the every TV show being a miniseries thing is a fucking bummer. And it's especially a bummer for something like Scott Pilgrim, where O'Malley does a great job in the constraints of the 8-episode structure. But yeah, like, it would be great if they could have done 10 or 12 or 20.
12 episodes. Like, I like a good miniseries, but I don't like how that's become like the standard.
Yeah. Among many things that like Netflix has destroyed about our culture.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like relatively low on the list, but still, like,
Yeah.
Who was your favorite character? Favorite evil ex?
Kim Pine.
I mean, yeah, obviously. But you, Alex. I mean, John, if you have more things to say, like.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that Evil X. I like that Lucas Lee had more to do in this one. I liked Lucas. I thought Lucas was fun. I liked his bromance with Gordon in that one episode where they listened to Vampire Weekend and watch anime.
That was fun.
What, Alex?
Favorite character.
I mean, your favorite character can also be your favorite evil ex. I just wanted to make sure.
I will not go down that path. I mean, Ramon, I think, being the star of the show this time around, and not that she really wasn't in the comic or anything, or the movie really, but just, cool character. And I like the journey she goes on. Evil X-wise, I love the good old vegan man,
Todd,
who goes through some heartbreak. Let's not avoid that.
I love what they did with Todd.
In
this show, it's really fun.
Yeah, Todd is definitely my new favorite evil ex. At least as far as like this series goes. I mean, like, look. Roxy Richter is number one in my heart forever, but like I really liked the character development for Todd in this show, and I mean, like Ramona's obviously my favorite character.
If I had to do a second, it'd be Wallace as a second favorite character, because I think Wallace is just great in this show.
Oh, Wallace is great in everything, and he's so
gets
perfect.
A little more to do, but like
he's so good, so good. And we kind of touched on it, but did either of you like go through any particular like changes in your feelings towards certain characters based on the way that they were explored in this series versus previous iterations of Scott Pilgrim?
One thing I really liked is how much they sidelined G-Man. Because in the movie, he's like the big bad, and even in the comics, like he's also like the big bad, right? Like,
I'm glad that they didn't even attempt to go for the glow.
Yeah, they didn't do the Uchina thing with the castle and the sword. Yeah, well, of course sure. But I like that he is just basically just like petty and pathetic the whole time. He gets fucking smoked by Matthew Patel in like episode 4.
Yeah, it's
and
so good.
Slinks back to Julie's house to basically be like a house husband for a few episodes. Just like becomes like a total dirtbag. Like, not that he isn't a dirtbag in the comics and the movie, but like he is a different kind of dirtbag, like a failure kind of dirtbag. Yeah.
In the like previous versions, whereas now he is truly a dirtbag.
Yeah, I think it's really fun that they don't take him seriously at all. Like, he is just the most pathetic loser character.
Yeah.
And there's not even an attempt
and even his master like evil plan at the end, it's like, oh, I'm gonna blow up the theater because the guy beat me up in a fight. It's like, oh,
And even that gets upstaged is the thing.
It does. Yeah.
Like that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's just one of those things where I don't know, like the character is always kind of pathetic in previous iterations, but there's a seriousness and a gravitas that he has where, like, on the one hand, like, you're kind of laughing at him because he's a smarmy asshole in previous iterations of the character, but also, like, he's dangerous and successful and, like, he's portrayed with, like, a baseline competency.
Powerful.
And here he's just like a loser wimp that, like, got a good, he got a good, like, die roll when he was born or whatever, and he can't do anything. He sucks. And he is owned by Matthew Patel, like the first X that Scott defeats in the easiest way possible in the other two iterations.
Much to Matthew's surprise too. It's like, oh, huh.
But he rolls like Matthew Patel rolls his shit. Like it's It was like watching, what the Dolphins did to the Broncos earlier this season. Like it's like a 70-20 style game, like unprecedented upset. G-Man on absolute fraud watch. Yep. And, deserved based on where things go in the end.
Yeah, it really feels like, because every Evil X, even the twins that get like a couple lines in this one, it feels like they all get way more fleshed out stuff, and it almost feels like, hey, Scott Pilgrim was a movie, and then they're doing this comic book about like the X's and giving you little short stories and like what they're up to. And it does all like feed the bigger narrative, but it also kind of feels a little bit like, oh, it's a little bit of slice of life for them, and you get to really get to know them better. And it's like, it doesn't really build towards the narrative because none of them have anything to do with it really.
I also like that the Evil X's are kind of unbothered by the whole League of Evil X's thing.
Yeah.
Like Matthew Patel obviously like goes and defeats Scott or whatever, and Gordon is into it because he's the most recently scorned. But the rest of them, because in the comics, like you get the flashbacks where Ramona explains like what happened, and then they show up and Scott fights him eventually. But in this one, it's like, they showed up to the League of Evil X's thing kind of because they want a social thing to do. And then all of them just end up being like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really care about that. Like there's a sort of
really evil. It's just branding.
Yeah. And there's a sense that like, to a degree, not all of them are like over Ramona, which I think is important for the story to like fully work. But none of them are so obsessed with her in the way that they're portrayed as in the other two iterations of the story. So it's just, I don't know, like I like that aspect of it because they actually get to be like, they're fun villains in the comic and the movie.
But they get to be individuals.
They get to have stuff beyond just like, being spited by and obsessed with, Ramona for their whole lives, which is fun. Like, it lets you do different things with the characters, which I think is kind of the modus operandi of the show, is that like you get to do different things with all the characters.
It's an Elseworlds tale, but it's canon. Kinda. I don't know.
I like the idea that there's like a Scott Pilgrim multiverse now. Like in 20 years they'll do like the shitty Spider-Man movie, but for Scott Pilgrim.
Scott meets Scott. Oh my gosh. And if they do like kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit style, where like Michael Cera's live action, but then like you got Scott who's a cartoon kind of thing,
and then you have like comic Scott who's just in cartoon panels and doesn't actually move, but it's just like inset over the shots, and they're all voiced by Michael Cera. It's not even really like the Spider-Man thing where they get all the actors. It's just like Michael Cera doing all of it.
That's so great.
Good for him.
I'm glad to hear he's still working.
I would really
in this future
enjoy Into the Pilgrimverse.
Brian Lee O'Malley, you can call us anytime you want.
But we know you're listening.
We're gonna just ask about Snow.
I won't even ask for residuals, but as Alex alluded to, I will ask for one issue of Snot Girl.
Yeah, that's all we need
for this idea.
In exchange for this idea, just please one issue of Snot Girl.
One DC holiday special. You know you can do it.
My crops are dying. What did you guys think of the animation in this show? I feel like, Jean-Luc, you said at one point that you were not impressed.
Yeah, I mean it's solid most of the way through, but a lot of it I don't know, like I find that it's lacking in detail in a way that the comic isn't. Like a lot of the set dressing in the comic is like really intricate, which I understand that's hard to do and it's hard to do in animation, but I'm not super impressed with like the way the animation moves. Like it looks fine. There's some really great scenes. I think in when you take screenshots of it or look at stills, it looks great because it, just looks like it's adapting O'Malley's style. But I think in motion, there's definitely some things about it that are not the best.
I would say definitely, like, there's sometimes when it has less frames, which I don't think is a bad thing.
I definitely don't like that, but
I know that can be up to personal taste, but like anime occasionally operates under less like frames, and so that is just something that I'm a little more accustomed to probably. But
it's weird because I didn't know who Science Saru was, but I have seen Ping Pong the animation, and I think Ping Pong looks incredible. Yeah. One of my friends made me sit down and watch it a few years ago.
Okay, interesting.
But I think Ping Pong looks really good, and I like know about Devilman Crybaby because it's the same guy who did it and who directed.
And it's also Science Saru is like his studio basically.
Oh, so did they also do like Inuo and Night is Short, Walk On Girl?
I know they did Night is Short, Walk On Girl. Let me like make sure about Inuo before I actually
because
say that for
those
sure.
Look really good. Like the animation in those is I would say definitely better than this. And I don't know if it's like a Netflix shoestring budget type deal, but
well, you can also Science Saru did Inuo as well.
Which Inuo is amazing.
You're comparing the budgets of like a movie versus a TV show, so like in that regard, like like The Night is Short, Walk On Girl and Inuo are Ping Pong is also a series, so that's like different, but like it's about like what you're allocated per like bit of the thing you're doing.
I don't think it's the animator's fault. I'm very happy to say that Netflix is a dog shit company that does not give their creatives that they hire the amount of budget and legroom that they need to make good art,
I like to think that they probably like, because there are a lot of like pretty intense like fight scenes and action scenes in this show, so I like to think that they probably did the best that they could with the amount of budget that Netflix was willing to give.
I definitely believe that.
Alex, how did you feel about the animation while watching it?
I liked it. I think the fight scenes were especially rad. But I didn't really have a problem with. Yeah, overall, I was like, oh, cool. I think it had enough little like Easter eggs and little jokes that it was like, oh, nice. It kind of feels like the comic. In some ways. Kind of brought that over.
Yeah, I really liked the way that they like executed the Scott Pilgrim visual style in like adapting this. I like just there's something about the Scott Pilgrim art style that is just like pure serotonin to my brain. So like seeing it in motion was just like all I could have asked for, and then getting like new story and getting to see it animated was just like it was just more than I could have possibly expected.
Yeah, for sure.
What did you guys think of the voice acting. As we mentioned, almost the entire live action cast, every speaking member of the primary live action cast returned to reprise their roles. I know I've just asked what you guys thought. I will say there is a gulf in my opinion. There is a gulf in the quality of the voice acting here. I think that some people did a really goddamn good job, and other people were maybe phoning it in a little.
Name them.
Kieran Culkin popped off though, low-key.
Oh yeah, no, 110%. Like every single second that Wallace was speaking is perfect, beyond measure.
I actually think Chris Evans did a really good job too, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. It seemed like he actually wanted to be there. But
are you guys Brendan Roth haters? Is this where this is going?
The Todd voice
actor? That's Todd? No, I thought Todd was great.
I think definitely in the first couple episodes, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is not bringing her A game. That's what I will say. Like,
take her.
She gets better over time, but
she kind of like has to find her footing.
I've seen her recently live action acting in Ahsoka, and I thought
that's not live. That's not live action. That is also animation.
I saw her going in front of a screen, and I was talking to Jean-Luc, and he was like, "Man, she used to be able to act like." In such films as Scott Pilgrim, and then this anime comes and it's like, at times.
To be fair, she is definitely not doing live action in Ahsoka because that is like Hera is an entirely CG character. So
really? There's
it's all. I mean, I'm sure she was on set, but like,
are you sure? Because it's like. So it's not like prosthetic. It's like
Hera. No. Despite the fact that they made Twi'lek prosthetics look really good in Return of the Jedi, they did not. I'm pretty sure they did not.
Yeah, but that was 40 years ago. It's been lost.
Technology. Yeah. Prosthetics have gotten worse since then, if anything. But like, she was a major weak point at the beginning, and I think Michael Cera is fine, but he sounds too old to be Scott Pilgrim. That's the biggest issue with him. And there's other members of the cast where that's true as well, but
I was surprised. I was like concerned that Michael Cera would not really be able to like bring it as Scott Pilgrim, but I thought that like, I mean, not that he's in as much of the show, but I thought that he did a pretty decent job compared, I guess, to what I expected of him. But yeah, I agree that I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead took a little bit to find her footing, but I do think that she does kind of find a good place with Ramona, and like towards the end, like I think that she does a really good job actually. Aubrey Plaza I was most disappointed in, just in terms of like expectation versus what happened, because like Aubrey Plaza's a good actress who I enjoy in most things, but like I felt like not all of her performances, Julie, but like 3/4, like half to 3/4 of her performance just felt kind of like
she
phoned in, like she was just yelling, and it really it put into focus okay, so the way that I watched the series is I watched the first 2 episodes and then I went to bed, and then I watched episodes 3 through 7, and then I didn't get to watch episode 8 until like a couple of days later. And in the intervening time, I watched not all of, but a considerable chunk of like the live action Scott Pilgrim movie. I just rewatched it with someone who had not seen it before. And just like the vocal comparison of like the way that she does the Julie voice versus a lot of the performance in the anime, I thought was just super lacking, and that she was just kind of yelling, like not like yelling in a voice actor way, just like yelling. That was my biggest disappointment. Like I there were other members of the cast that I thought were not as good, but like just because Aubrey Plaza is an actress that I genuinely really like, that was like the biggest disappointment for me.
I think Julie kind of just yells a lot, but I also agree that she did not give the best performance.
Yeah, but
definitely on the weaker side.
But it's more to it than just yelling, I guess.
No, sure. Yeah, that's true. She does not do a great job. I agree with you, like that she does not do a great job of embodying Julie.
I'm trying to think. There were other voice actors that I was not as impressed with, but young Neil, I thought like I loved the
young
way
Neil Hader.
No, I
young
love
Neil's
the way.
great.
I love the way his character was written. I just felt like the vocal performance, like maybe left a little to be desired.
I honestly think that like pretty much everyone except Kieran Culkin and Chris Evans actually are kind of inconsistent. Like there are moments where they sound really good. Some of them get better as the series goes on. Some of them are just inconsistent throughout.
Mae Whitman is Roxy Richter is perfect in all.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's because she is a voice actress.
Yeah. But she also doesn't have like the most lines. You know, like young Neil has
mostly,
yeah.
But she also is like a voice actress, right. So that doesn't really count.
Yeah. That's kind of a separate case. But pretty much the entire rest of the cast definitely has moments of like, maybe you needed another take on that one. But like, I don't know. Most of them aren't actual voice actors. Most of them are just live action actors, which as cool as it and kind of nostalgic as it is that they got the entire original cast to come back.
I kind of wish they had gotten real voice actors.
Yeah, I agree. I think that getting a professional voice cast would have been a smarter decision, and maybe have like some of them come back to do like cameo voices or cameo appearances.
It's interesting because on one hand, like, okay, obviously the comic has no voice acting in it, right? So it's different, and the movie has the cast. So it's kind of three separate Scott Pilgrim, versions. So having a completely different cast would be kind of cool and set it apart. But I think at the same time, a lot of the excitement is like, oh, we got the full cast back, and they're doing it.
I imagine
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, that was probably a big sell for Netflix. But it also being able to say that.
I guess we don't really know how true their like story about like, oh my gosh, yeah, we're in this email chain and we got back, but it does seem like they genuinely are like, oh, like this is something we did for a lot of us early in our careers, and since then we've gotten a lot bigger. Some of us have not, but it's like, oh yeah, like I think they genuinely.
I mean, you look at some of the names on the list, like Michael Cera, Chris Evans, Brie Larson. Like these are people who were kind of starting to like break into the mainstream when the movie came out, and are now like major like A-list actors. I mean, Chris Evans wasn't Captain America when the movie came out.
Oh no.
I think
Mary Elizabeth Winstead hadn't been in Star Wars yet.
Brie Larson hadn't done much of anything.
Captain Hezbollah.
Not yet.
The thing is that from what I understand, it just seems like everyone had like a really good, fun time making Scott Pilgrim. And so like everyone in the cast kind of like kept Scott Pilgrim close to their hearts as far as projects go. And so it didn't seem like it took very much convincing to get everybody on board for this.
I feel like everybody involved with this except Lee O'Malley has like positive memories of the Scott Pilgrim movie, because that man spends 2 episodes fucking eviscerating Edgar Wright, just like taking him to task. And now, look, Edgar Wright's been on Fraud Watch for the past like decade at this point.
Hey,
so
he had a cameo in the anime though. So,
he did, but there's definitely a part of me that is like, God, does Brian Lee O'Malley think the movie is just terrible? Because those 2 episodes where they're on the set,
pretty brutal.
Like it is a brutal retelling of like
Edgar Wrong pretty fucking funny.
Edgar Wrong is very funny. And that, if it was just that, I could be like, oh, okay, they're just doing a bit at his expense. But the fact that like young Neil is portrayed as like this total incompetent screenwriter, doesn't even write his own script, has somebody else ghostwrites it for him and he doesn't even know, but he takes credit for it anyway. And it's a complete fuck up and a disastrous take on the source material. Although, of course, in this case, the source material is in theory like autobiographical about a real person who exists, which is a little different. But you really get the impression that Brian Lee O'Malley was not happy about.
Yeah,
the movie.
I had a friend. I asked a friend before we went to record this if she had any like anything that she thought I should bring up in this episode, and her only thing was, do you think that any of the Edgar Wright digs hurt Edgar Wright's feelings?
No,
I don't think so, because I mean he is executive producers, and it does seem like he and O'Malley are like, you know, on pretty good terms. So I imagine all of this was in pretty good fun, even if it is kind of brutal towards the movie.
I mean, Edgar Wright's just counting the stacks, you know, so
yeah,
he probably does not give a shit.
Last Night in Soho, what was the new one that was disappointing by him? Or was it
no, Last Night in Soho was the bad one.
Was that the latest one?
That's the most. Before that was the shitty movie about the deaf kid with the Beck song, that was fucking painful. Baby Driver, with
okay.
That movie sucked shit, and I know that.
No, it has Kevin Spacey in it.
Yeah, great sign for your movie. Good things were going on that set. No. Basically, since Scott Pilgrim, he's been on Fraud Watch. He had the great like run of like
trilogy.
Well, The World's End is not that good. The first two parts of the trilogy, yeah, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are bangers.
If you look at them as a whole, it's a good trilogy. As a whole.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 is good, yeah.
Very important question. What's everyone's favorite Edgar Wright? Mine's Hot Fuzz.
Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, fuck. Of the trilogy. I guess, yeah, you know what, you got me.
Oh, of the trilogy, it's Hot Fuzz, yeah. Hot Fuzz is awesome.
Yeah, also probably Hot Fuzz, although I do quite like Shaun of the Dead.
No, Shaun of the Dead is awesome. Shaun of the Dead.
I enjoyed the Sean Penn and or not Sean Penn. Who am I fucking?
Sean Penn of the Dead?
No. What is no? What is his?
Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg. That's the name I'm trying. That's the name that my brain is trying to come up with. I enjoyed the Simon Pegg and Nick Frost cameos in
the last episode.
No, they were.
Wait, are they in it before then?
Yeah, they were. They're in the at least one of the like the documentary episodes.
Are they the security guards?
Yeah,
they're the security guards. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're the security guards on the set. But yeah, I thought that was cute and fun.
Yeah, no, that was fun.
But how did you guys feel about the direction?
Can I say one more thing while we're on the like movie thing?
Yeah.
Really?
The fact that, so it's not just about the movie, but it's the fact that between Brian Lee O'Malley like doing something completely different and also skewering the movie makes me like kind of interested to know like how he feels about Scott Pilgrim the comic. Because like it is the thing that like broke him big, obviously. Like it's super popular to this day.
From the interviews that I read, he seems just kind of exhausted with it.
I would believe that absolutely, yeah. But it is interesting that like it, you know, obviously it's been like 20 years since he wrote it, so it doesn't surprise me that as he got older and matured as a writer, he would want to sort of have a second go at the material. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's interesting both that he didn't retell the comic and also that he, you know, made the decision to like kind of make fun of the movie, even if it is just like, you know, good fun, like poking at it. Like it's still kind of like incisive about the movie, right? Like there's a lot of people who like don't like the movie,
yeah,
or you know, at least like have stupid opinions about the movie to an extent, but like there's it is like kind of an interesting like wrinkle to me that O'Malley seems like not super into the fact that Scott Pilgrim is what it is, the sort of like cultural phenomenon that it is.
It's interesting because if you look at his comic work, he's really only done. I mean, he did Lost at Sea before Scott Pilgrim.
Lost at Sea, which is also my favorite O'Malley book.
Never read it. I haven't read Seconds either, so there's
we should do
opportunity.
Seconds is awesome.
Both of those.
But okay, so he did Scott Pilgrim, and then since then he's just done Seconds, and sure he's done like a few comic book stuff.
Snot
Girl being the biggest one, but Scott Pilgrim ended in 2010, and when you don't have, I guess, when Scott Pilgrim's as good as it is, and you don't have that many other projects and stuff, I can see how it's like the only thing, but also can kind of get annoying for him.
I can also see how it's the kind of thing that just like dangles over the rest of your career to an extent, right?
And what are you going to write next? Like every project you do, you have the expectations of Scott Pilgrim.
Pilgrim.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, say we will about Lost at Sea and Seconds. They could be better. They could be fantastic. But like, that's not what people are generally like the first thing they think of when they think of him. So
it seems like the thing about like O'Malley and revisiting this series or like revisiting the world of Scott Pilgrim was that like he wasn't necessarily against the concept. He just like didn't have any ideas for what what something else in the Scott Pilgrim universe would look like. And it seems like the like some of these like wild card ideas thrown out by Grabinski really like helped make this series take shape. So yeah, it's interesting. Can we pause real quick so I can go pee because I drank an entire beverage while we've been talking?
Yeah.
Okay, I swear I will be so quick.
So Jean-Luc, tell me about the Star Wars thing I don't know about.
A Star Wars thing you don't know about?
I don't know about.
Well, there's a lot, but I'm trying to think of something that's like kind of interesting.
No, it doesn't have to be interesting.
But I also don't want to spoil things if you depending on how far you keep reading in the like
you're right.
post Return of the Jedi timeline.
I appreciate you putting a lot of thought into this. That's good.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, never mind. You know Talon Card, right?
No, who's Talon Card?
No, isn't he in the Thrawn trilogy?
What does he do?
he's a smuggler guy.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's pretty sure he's in the Thrawn trilogy.
Okay, yeah.
So this is like
one of the ones to help with the ship or
he is, yeah.
Stuff, yeah.
So this is like a small spoiler. It's like relevant but not super relevant. So after the Yuzan Vong War, he gets a Star Destroyer that he owns.
He likes the Star Destroyers.
Yeah. And he converts it into a casino.
Oh, hell yeah.
He takes it to the fronts of like major wars. And so there's just this Star Destroyer with, still fully armed, but inside of it is not like a traditional crew or anything. It's just a Star Destroyer sized casino resort. And the idea is he takes to the front of major war zones, and when the crews of the ships in those war zones are off, cycle or whatever, and they have, shore leave or whatever the equivalent is, they go to this Star Destroyer casino resort, and they can stay in a luxury resort and gamble and, go to the spa and do all of those things.
In theory, you have people from both sides of the war in this hotel casino.
Yes. So,
No guns, no weapons.
Well, there's not supposed to be, but there's a very fun chase sequence in... I have a lot of critiques of the Legacy of the Force novels, but there's a very fun chase sequence involving some members of the Jedi Order and some of the post-New Republic kind of enforcers that takes place in the casino.
I love the concept that he shows up with his Star Destroyer and he's like, "Hey guys, don't attack me. I'm the casino." And they're like, "Oh, if we live through the next 20 minutes, I'm gonna lose so much time." I'm like, "What happens if you hit it big? What's your plan? You still got to fight in this war.
You got to go back to the I just really love it because it leans into like it's like my favorite kind of EU thing where it's so stupid, but in a way that is so fun. Like you have this huge universe, you can do whatever you want, and some guy was like, Star Destroyer Casino, and they're just like, go for it, dude.
What's that? Oh yeah, okay.
it's a cool thing.
Wow.
Anyway.
Welcome back, Emily. Alex asked me to tell him something he didn't know about Star Wars.
Of course.
And then Jean-Luc was like, "Oh, I got to tell something that's cool." And I was like, "No, you don't have to do that." But then
I just assume anytime that I leave the room, you guys are talking about Star Wars.
There's a lot of stuff about Star Wars that is not cool. That is definitely true.
But it could be entertaining.
I found something that I think is both cool and like a fun like little tidbit.
Do you agree with Jean-Luc? Let us know.
Do you think Star Destroyer, all of like every warship should be converted into a casino? Like, think about it. Like, if we took the U.S. Navy and made all the ships into casinos that could just exist on open sea, would the world be a better or worse place?
They make money. The U.S. government's happy. Yeah. That's great. And you don't need oil when you have that much money.
And if you think about it, the genius of Talent Card's operation is that it's not beholden to any like regulations because it's just a ship in free. I don't know.
Anyway,
Talent Card's a smart guy.
I think so. If you take one thing away from this episode, Talent Card, smart guy.
How did you guys feel about the direction that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off took the series? Like, how do you feel about the direction the story took?
I mean, yeah, it's cool. I mean, yes, I guess I've already said it, so I'll be quick. But it's neat that we get a little Elseworlds-y kind of tale about Scott Pilgrim, and one that really fleshes out the characters, and I think in many ways does. It's weird to say a better job than the original graphic novel because that was the first thing, so it kind of doesn't feel
sort of a more well-rounded job, I think.
Yeah, and it's a great companion piece, and it's something that's like, oh, cool, I like Scott Pilgrim, and there's like at least 3 things that I can point to be like, oh, check this out. And as far as I can tell, there hasn't been a Scott Pilgrim thing that's not a banger. I haven't played the game.
The game is a banger.
There we go.
It's really fun.
It's all bangers, which is a testament to Brian Lee O'Malley, who not only, but he's not pumping out books every like year and stuff like that. He's not writing whatever the fuck Scott Snyder's writing. Wow, that was he's probably a nice guy.
Shot across the bow, damn.
He's his actions, Well, anyway, yeah. In conclusion,
I like that. It opens the door, and I know that like Brian Lee O'Malley has said that he doesn't really want to do more. And I know that we're probably going to talk about this later, but it opens the door for like, what if we took the Scott Pilgrim universe and told like a different story, and we told it, but more importantly, told it with a different POV character, because both the movie and the comic are told from Scott's perspective, and the first episode of the show is also told from Scott's perspective because it's just the first like half hour of the movie, or it's a little less than that, I think. But this is like, what if we told the Scott Pilgrim story and it was a different story, but we told it from Ramona's POV? And I really like that idea, both because like part of like the story of the Scott Pilgrim character is coming to the realization that he is, no matter despite like the sort of fantastical trappings, he's not like the main character of reality, and that he hurts a lot of people, and the things that he does have really like significant effects on the people in his life that he is very callous about, despite being kind of happy-go-lucky about the whole thing. So it is cool to then see that universe from the perspective of another character. And Ramona is, the obvious other character you'd want to see it from, because she is sort of the secondary protagonist of both the comic and the movie. And so it's neat to be able to see it from somebody else's, like actually get to see it from somebody else's perspective and not sort of get those perspectives laundered through Scott. And I think it'd be cool to see it from other characters' perspectives too. Like obviously not everybody can be a main character. Like I don't need to see it from Lucas Lee's perspective, even though I like Lucas Lee as a character. But
Sure.
you know, it's cool that like it's cool as an acknowledgement that there are a lot of really compelling and really awesome characters in Scott Pilgrim, and just you can utilize all of them more if you want to, and you can do more with all of them, and that's fun. And when you're a writer that's as good as Brian Lee O'Malley, you can, you know, make all those stories feel compelling and interesting. So I think it's a really cool direction to take the story.
For sure.
Also, he clearly watched another anime in the intervening times. He went from only having seen Revolutionary Girl Utena to also having seen Neon Genesis Evangelion. So this is like way more on my wavelength specifically.
If you watch Speed Racer next, I think we have the trinity of us.
That's so true.
It's fantastic.
Is there anything that you guys wish that had been done differently?
I actually am not in love with the big reveal that the whole thing is like Scott time traveling.
Yeah.
To like, I like the idea that like, on the one hand, I think it's fun that like Scott never grows up, and those episodes, the first time travel episode, I think is episode 7, is awesome, where they go forward and Scott's living in Wallace's basement. I think that's really fun, but it does kind of feel almost like a cop out to the story of Scott loses the first battle. Like it's such a compelling what if of like, what is Scott Pilgrim without Scott Pilgrim, that I was a little disappointed. And I knew that it was a fake out, because there's no way that you do a Scott Pilgrim show that is like, oh, Scott Pilgrim is not there. And obviously like they set up the whole thing as like Ramona doing the like investigating like what really happened to Scott. But the idea of what happens to the characters in the Scott Pilgrim universe when Scott is completely removed is a much more compelling question to me. And I was a little bit bummed, like what we got. I'm not disparaging what they did with the show at all, like, because I do love it, but I would have loved to actually get to see like what does it look like when Scott is completely removed from the equation. So I thought
if they did a
like,
2-season kind of thing where like you don't see Scott at all till like the finale or something, or something like that. I mean, it's interesting because in many ways the show like kind of checks all the boxes. It's like, you know, people are being like, well, you know, Scott's relationship with Knives a little problematic, huh? And like in the show, you know, everyone's saying it, but Scott's also like at the end there's actually a moment of, you know, Scott realizing that truly.
I didn't mention, but I thought that I think her name is Ellen Chow that does the voice of Knives. I thought did a really good job.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I think she, you know, she's fantastic in the movie, and I think she was like further fantastic in this show.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then, you know, stuff like, oh, like Scott is just completely in his own world, and that's very clearly tackled. And then also stuff with Ramona where it's like, you know, not all of your exes were good people, but you also didn't treat them all well as well. And it's also, you know, learning that. And I do like the message that like, just because it's going to end in tragedy in a way doesn't mean it's not worth going through. And it's also like,
you might say
end in tragedy.
You might say, Alex, that it's a sad song, but we sing it anyway.
That's for Jean-Luc not being here. Is that our version of Star Wars talk? Is it's just Hades Town?
Yeah,
little references in there. That was good, Emily. And it's true. Oh,
yeah.
Check out Hades Town, everybody.
Yeah, everybody go check out Hades Town.
But yeah, where did I get the reputation of being a Hades Town hater?
I think you're just a musical
Hades Town hater is kind of catchy though.
You're more.
He's a Hades Town hater.
You're just a musical hater, is what I think we're getting.
You just hate music, Jean-Luc, is what we're trying.
That is not.
Yeah, that's what we're always saying about you.
Name 5 musics. You can't.
You can't do it.
You can't. We'll move on.
But yeah, I really liked the story that they ended up with for this show. I can't really, other than like, I wish that it had a few, like at least 2, if not more, more episodes, so that we could like really kind of dive into more things. I know that like there's no place that you could have fit her in and it wouldn't make any sense, but I'm sad that Lisa wasn't here, even though like she barely matters. I like Lisa, and I was kind of hoping
That is not true that Lisa barely matters.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair.
In
and
the comic, Lisa is a very important part of the story. Like, even if she only shows up for like relatively brief periods.
Yeah, I guess it would have been more accurate to say like she, she doesn't show up for very much. So like, it makes sense to cut her out of, or to not include her in this version of the story, especially because like they kind of backseat all of like, other than Wallace, backseat all of the like Scott related characters.
Yeah,
like we don't
like
really...
Envy is barely in it too,
that's
which I was
literally
a little surprised by.
Literally what I was about to say. We barely get not that you just, the fact that we were like right on that same wavelength is that
there I go mansplaining again.
that like we barely get any Envy, even though she does get her incredible musical number in episode 2.
We get some Stacey.
Small note on that. I think it's awesome that they got the lead singer of Metro to sing for her, given
so
that
good.
In the original, Brie Larson sings a cover of a Metric song, so I think it's great that they got her.
Well, no, it's actually Metric in the movie, isn't it?
Does Brie Larson not sing the?
I
have for years lived under the assumption that Brie Larson did a cover of Black Sheep for that song. I did not think it was the Metric version.
Was replaced for singing parts.
Yeah, I know that Brie Larson is a singer, but I was pretty certain that the music in the movie was...
It says that she was replaced in the anime, not in the actual show she's singing.
Yeah, there is a Brie Larson vocal version of Black Sheep.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thought it was just the band. So...
Yeah.
I thought it was actually Metric.
Ooh, there's a 500-word article asking this very question.
Okay.
Yes, the answer is
it's yes. A great song.
Okay. Fun.
Black Sheep.
Yeah. Funny rules. But
I just like that there's a few things where I just like the sort of like inversion of the original of the movie, but it's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, do either of you guys have a favorite episode?
I think it's episode 5 is a documentary episode, the one that's like a documentary of them making the movie. That episode is awesome.
Honestly, it is kind of a highlight of the whole show.
It's just so fun the way that they shoot it, and also like I love it when fictional like movies or TV shows are shot like documentaries. Like I just love. I mean, I love found footage horror, but I just like beyond that love that sort of like subgenre of like the mockumentary or whatever of we're gonna shoot this like it's real. That is always so fun, and I love that young Neil wears a shirt that just says David Cronenberg.
We need those David Cronenberg for president shirts or whatever.
For years, I've thought that there's like a company that does the like directors, just their name on like a white t-shirt. And for years I've been like, that's a little bit cringe. And then I saw the David Cronenberg on a black t-shirt and I was like,
oh yeah.
Is it though? Is it cringe? Because you would catch me wearing a David Cronenberg t-shirt like that.
Oh yeah.
So. Yeah. Episode 5. Yeah. Honestly, it's great.
And I know that.
So, yeah. I mean, really, I'm saying words, but you can tune out now. It's most episodes in the show. It just felt like okay, like sure they're after Scott, but it was just so cool seeing the characters doing their own thing and having their own whimsical tales. Which I mean, we've been over that a lot, but good stuff. And then I like the finale. I like that it ties everything up, gives everyone the ending. I think the emotional core and what it's kind of like its main message and its whole thing at the end. I'm like, oh, cool. They managed to end it. The after credits kind of like there could be more was a little bit like, oh,
it's a little cheesy.
I understand like have that door open, sure, if you ever want to use it, but you could always just you don't need that there. I think just end it there. But
It is weird considering like that they have been very vocal about the fact that they have like literally no plans for what a season 2 would look like that they put everything that they wanted to do on the table for this, that they added in that little like tease at the end.
I think it's just it's probably like one of those things where they don't want to, like, there may not be interest now, but they don't want to completely close the door.
Yeah, and I would
they
not
want to
be
leave.
surprised if this gets renewed.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where this is very much a comics thing of you always want to leave the door open just in case, because you might come back to something. You never know when something is actually over.
You did that in Doomsday Clock, right? So on the last
shut
page,
the fuck
you
up.
It's over,
you know,
right?
Alex, I was in a Half Price Books over the weekend. I went up to Seattle to visit some friends, and there were not. I should have taken a full picture. There was not one, but 2 sets of issues 1 to 12 of Doomsday Clock in their single issues, and it was half off. And I was like,
"You own 24 issues of Doomsday Clock now?
Fuck that! No,
wild.
I do.
That's
I don't.
Crazy.
But it was definitely a moment of like, I felt so vindicated seeing those in a Half Price Books long box. Like, yeah, that's right. No one wants this dog shit.
Those poor comic
Nobody
book
wants
ordered
it.
so many copies because they're like Watchmen 2. Well, I guess Watchmen 3, because before Watchmen would be Watchmen 2. Unless you're looking at like a Lion King 1.5 style, but anyway.
Okay, so the next question is not a question. We have to talk about Scottless, which is of course...
Is that a disease?
No.
Is this a we need to talk about Kevin style scenario?
I mean, I was making a bit of a joke on the we need to talk about Kevin as a title, but no, Scottless being the like ship of Scott and Wallace. We need to talk about Scott and Wallace, and like I just find this fascinating because it seems like, based on my research, that like no one wants Scott and Wallace to fuck more than Brian Lee O'Malley, and yet he has not put it on the page. And it just, I don't know, like, it's just really interesting because if you look at a lot of his like art of Scott Pilgrim characters, like Wallace is often grouped with other characters like of like a certain kind in Scott's life, like his exes, so to speak. And it is heavily implied that Wallace like has feelings for Scott in the comic at certain points, and also like in this show, like there's the relationship between Wallace and Todd, but like Todd is dressed as Scott the whole time, and I don't know, like I just like I find this fascinating, and I know that I'm talking to like 2 ostensibly heterosexual men. You know, I'm not making any assumptions, but
I like the idea that Scott is one of those guys from that like 2015 or 2016 New York Times article about the bromosexuals, like the guys who like, they're 2 guys and they live together and they regularly fuck each other, but they're also say that they're totally straight.
But they're totally straight.
I mean,
like I like the idea that Scott, like the same thing that Scott is like, yeah, you know, I'm sober, I don't drink, is he has the same relationship with like having sex with men, where he's like, yeah, no, I've never
but that's the thing before. Is like, he says like, yeah, I don't drink, but then like one of the times that we do see him having been really drunk is when he's with Wallace, and like when it is questioned about how he and Wallace start living together, like I is it like Kim or somebody asks, like, is it a gay story? And he's like, it's somewhat gay, but does not elaborate. Like, I don't know. I find the series like constantly dancing around like the concept of Scott and Wallace to be kind of fascinating.
There's part of me that thinks it's fun. I mean, I know that like a lot of people probably won't agree with me on this because it's like queer baity or whatever. But there is part of me that thinks it's fun that like it's something that's always hinted at but never actually like made canon,
Sure.
because I think it speaks to both like Scott and Wallace as characters individually, that like Scott wouldn't really want people to know about that. It's a little weird now to like still be doing that, and also like whatever feelings Wallace may have, like I don't think Wallace would want to be seen as being connected with Scott in that way,
No,
right? Like,
I
think Wallace's like
that.
social credit, for lack of it, Wallace's Communist Party social credit score is way too valuable to ever date someone like Scott Pilgrim, So I like the idea that it's like one of those things where you just can never see it like explicitly, but
yeah,
it's just always subtext for that exact reason.
It's just like in the original, like when they wake up with like, or like when there's the moment where like they're all in bed together and like it's clearly like Wallace and a hookup and also Scott, it's like this has clearly happened before. This clearly happens all the time. Like this is not regular like normal heterosexual roommate behavior.
It's also like Scott inserting himself into his life and being like a leech to him too.
Yeah.
Like
I also like the other part of that the other interpretation of that, which is just that like Scott is so like unaware and stupid at like socially inept that he just completely sleeps through it.
That's definitely what is being like what they're going for. I have to assume, but I don't know. Like I just find like the Scott and Wallace thing interesting, but it's funny that you say like it's also like Scott kind of inserting himself into Wallace's life, because if we like look at the like. If we look at the pages of the comic where we get kind of like the backstory of like Wallace and Scott hanging out, like it starts off with kind of like Wallace inserting himself into Scott's life and like hanging out with him, and then like they end up moving out and living together. And also like there are weird parallels in like the dialogue with Wallace with like dialogue that we see with like Lisa and Scott in like Lisa's backstory. So that just like further deepens this like interesting parallel of Wallace as like not Scott's ex, but kind of Scott's ex.
Well, Emily, you're not alone in these feelings, because the Scott Pilgrim Wallace Wells tag is the #1 relationship tag on AO3.
I was seeing Scottless fan art before the show debuted, and like that has only intensified.
Is it the thing is, are they exes? Because they like never start, never begin. No, they're just always there. Right?
I just mean like
it's a situationship.
Grouped with the characters who are his exes, like Kim and Lisa and Babe.
I guess it's just like that because they never like leave each other. They never have a moment of like actually.
I dead ass and I know that they were doing this intentionally. Like because I have watched Scott Pilgrim Takes Off 3 times in its entirety now. I mean, okay, one of those times I was mostly on acid, so that probably doesn't count. But I have watched it twice in its entirety, not on acid, and I can say like. When they were doing the episode, I think it's like the penultimate episode where you like get all of the backstory with old Scott or whatever, like there's a moment where it seems like they're gonna reveal that Scott and old Wallace are married, and then like they do a diversion and say that Wallace's husband works at Nintendo. But works at Nintendo. But the way that shot is like set up and framed and everything, like the expectation is that they're going to say that Scott and Wallace are married.
It's also kind of funny because it's like it's the old like joke of like, oh yeah, this is real. Like my uncle works at Nintendo, but like either your uncle does not work at Nintendo. It's like your uncle might not even exist as you say it. So
he gets all the new games.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. I wanted to make sure that the Scott and Wallace conversation got brought up.
In some ways, to go back to an earlier point, isn't that better than what Scott has with his other exes, though? That like they never are formally together, and so like there's no pressure on it, so they never have to break up and be it's like,
hey, find yourself a homie like Wallace, and live your lives happily together. But don't commit. But also,
commitment has never worked out for anyone.
It's true.
How did you guys feel about the ending of the season?
I feel like I've covered this a little bit, mentioned my feelings on it a little bit. So
me too. I liked it.
Okay,
It ties it up nicely.
I liked it.
Ended message.
I like that they had AK fields instead of AT fields. And that the whole thing was shot with like the red background that was like, oh, they're just doing End of Ava. It's like on the moon, like, oh, they're really just leaning into the Evangelion thing.
Yeah, I also the AK fields gave me quite a giggle.
Yeah,
I like the ending. The Super Ramona stuff makes me cry in this book club every time. I
thought it was a little corny, but it works.
I thought it was really cute and sweet, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
It's very Dr. Manhattan of like, you are every version of yourself at once, and you experience everything at the same time.
Stop talking about Doomsday.
But it's like a different it's a different way of taking it where that makes Dr. Manhattan this sort of like cold, emotionless being, whereas with Ramona, it's like you experience all of those feelings at once,
like the opposite
with one another, and it's like you become like the most honest like version of yourself, emotionally honest and open version of yourself.
It's beautiful.
There's a beauty to that.
Would you guys like to see another season of this?
I think it's
yes and no.
If they have a story to tell, I am interested in seeing another season of this. I don't want to just like prolong the series just to do it. I like that they came up with a story for this and then they did it. If they have another story, then I'm interested in seeing that. But like, if it's not gonna be like, if it's not gonna be this creative team, I don't think I would want to see it.
Hashtag I'm with her. I think that
Classic
if
Jean-Luc.
Brian Lee O'Malley has another Scott Pilgrim story that he wants to tell in him, whether it's directly connected to Scott Pilgrim Takes Off or not, if he does, I want him to do that. If he doesn't, then I don't want him to do that. And if anyone other than Brian Lee O'Malley wants to do a Scott Pilgrim thing, I want to tell them to fuck off, and that's not yours. Go away. No, nobody. You cannot sit with us. We do not want you here. Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I say just leave behind the TV show, do the musical, do a radio drama, do something else.
I agree that if they're going to do something, that like it'd be better to do it in another medium, because I like the idea that like every time you do a Scott Pilgrim thing, it can't be in a preview. Like you can't do a comic book sequel, you can't do another video game, you can't do another live action movie, and now you can't do another animated show. So you have to find some.
It's like a reverse Thanos getting all of the Infinity Stones, but now you can't use those medium.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
What if Scott Pilgrim wins what is it, an EGOT or whatever it is? It's like Emmy, Grammy.
Oh, that'd be really good.
Tony.
We need the Scott
Pilgrim to make it
concept album.
They need to make it an EGOT where like they add Eisners to the front of it.
Yes.
So. And a Harvey. EGOT.
Yeah. And then they need to add a K for the Keeleys. The video game
Keeleys.
awards.
Yeah,
we all know the Keeleys. Don't worry, Jean-Luc.
I think it is funny that they added in like the little tease at the end of like, oh, we might keep going, when they have been very vocal about the fact that like they don't have plans for season 2. But I would watch another season of this. And so if that's a thing that they decide to do, I hope that it's not just a cash grab. Even though this definitely like started off, the concept of doing anything else Scott Pilgrim was always going to be just a cash grab. I'm glad that like they actually managed to make it into something cool and interesting and fun.
It's the first Netflix original that's been good possibly ever.
Which character in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off cries the most?
Todd.
Oh, yeah.
See, I was thinking either Todd or Old Scott.
I don't think Old Scott has the capacity for that.
I mean, at some point, he definitely did. We just don't see it. So there's definitely a lot of crying.
Do you think so? Because
I mean, they were separated for like 10 years. I feel like he probably cried in the beginning.
Maybe.
But I
don't think he would let himself cry.
I imagine that, like, as far as like quantity, I feel like Todd probably cries in this.
Poor Todd.
Todd did nothing wrong except all the abuse he had in the original, I think.
I think it's really funny that, like, in the last episode, he's, like, loading up his popcorn with butter, but, like, movie popcorn, like, theater popcorn is notoriously, like, just, like, vegetable oil, so it wouldn't even be non-vegan. But...
That's true.
Yeah.
Take that.
Take that. I love Todd. I'm glad that most of the exes got a little more room to breathe in this series, and they get to be more than just little.
I like that Wallace treats him as being completely disposable, because it made me feel like I was seeing Roman Roy again for like a small moment.
Honestly, yeah, like getting to hear Kieran Culkin in this role as Wallace was like microdosing Roman Roy.
Yeah.
So that was good for me.
Yep.
Do you guys hear that sound? We've mentioned it a couple of times. It's the Doomsday Clock.
Oh, yeah.
Indicating that it's time for it's our first ever Cry Space. This is a new segment that we're trying out where we talk about something that made us cry this week. Do either of you have a Cry Space today?
Sorry, I'm trying to think. I saw The Boy and the Heron, which didn't actually make me cry, but it almost. I was like starting to feel emotional, and then I didn't quite get there. Not that it's not a side against the movie. Yeah, it was great. I really loved it. Oh, good. It's have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't gotten to see it yet.
Okay, so I
is showing in the theaters. It is showing in theaters near me, so I should go see it.
Yeah, you should go, because it is definitely best experienced kind of without any expectations.
I'm
or any,
excited for Rob Patz as the Bard.
I actually want to go see it. I actually want to go see it again because I saw the sub.
Oh, interesting.
And I would like to go see the dub because
the dub has more showings where I am, so I'm probably going to end up with that.
The dub has more showings here too, but it just so happened the showing I went to with my friends over the weekend was one of the sub showings.
That makes sense. Yeah,
it's so great that you get to hopefully experience both. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see the dub as well because of the voice cast is very good.
Just real quick, another thing that I meant to bring up when we were talking about the voice acting in Scott Pilgrim Takes Off earlier, like they actually have the Japanese cast for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is actually like mostly like actual Japanese voice actors, so I am kind of jealous of that fact that like they have like actual voice actors for the Japanese stuff.
I did see some people saying that the Japanese voice acting was a lot better.
I know that the show, I don't remember who does most of the other voices, but but the one that stuck out to me was that Ramona is voiced by the same voice actress that does the voice of Jolene in the JoJo season JoJo's Bizarre Adventure season Stone Ocean. So that was significant because she's a well-liked character. So I thought that it was fun that her voice actress gets to voice Ramona. But anyway, Alex, do you have a cry space?
I do. I live in Toronto, and today someone visited Toronto and they created a ruckus, and it was Timothée Chalamet. He came to the mall to talk about his new Wonka movie.
Yeah.
And my cry space is I'm going to see Wonka Saturday night. And
it's getting good reviews.
I don't like Willy Wonka. I don't like Timothée Chalamet.
Yes.
But when you direct Paddington, and you direct another movie, I'm there.
You don't like
that's why I'll be
Willy
there.
Wonka?
No.
You don't like the original?
You don't like the Roald Dahl book? Like you don't like, or not Roald Dahl?
No.
It's
It is Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
Is it a Roald Dahl? Yeah. Sorry, Roald Dahl. I'm not even going to get into.
Yeah. No, never.
For a second, I psyoped myself into thinking that it was a Dr. Seuss book, but no, it is in fact a Roald Dahl thing. No, it is actually. It has actually come out to very positive reviews.
That's interesting.
Which is funny because I've made fun of the trailer for the last 6 months because it looks awful.
I only saw 30 seconds of that trailer. I was in a theater and I was talking to someone, but he's just talking about the chocolate mafia, and they're like, you can't open a chocolate shop here, see? And I'm like, oh, I'm sold. I will watch this movie. But it's kind of
Riverdale-esque. It's it's like the what is the fake drug in
Jingle
Riverdale?
Jingle Jangle,
which is just
pop rocks
sugar.
And
pop rocks.
Yeah, probably laced with something.
Fentanyl.
But the other, that's the one. Hey, shout out. No.
Shout out to fentanyl.
But tomorrow I'm seeing Godzilla.
Fuck yeah! Godzilla -1 is awesome.
-1.
People should go see Godzilla.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I haven't seen a movie in a while, so I saw a lot in September and then haven't seen anything. So
I saw they did a 20th anniversary release of Tokyo Godfathers.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't seen it before. It's the only Satoshi Kon movie I've never seen.
Season.
So I went and saw it, and it was very good. I really.
I'm so glad.
There was a person behind me who gave their entire internal monologue during the movie, which was really fucking annoying. I was
maybe they were an actor in the original film.
Part of me wanted to turn around and just say, "Can you please shut up for a 5-minute period?"
I probably would have done that, honestly.
I
feel like it's generally not worth it, but because then they just get more annoying. But I'm glad you saw it. Also,
it was very good.
Movie news. I know this is not a movie news segment, but the best looking 3D film since Avatar is coming out this December. Aquaman 2.
Oh.
Fuck yeah.
That's what it said on the advertisement. It said the best looking 3D film since Avatar. I don't know how many films do 3D, so it's kind of gone away a bit, but yeah. Do as you will.
My cry space, I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but my cry space is podcast editing, and the reason I'm not going to go into the reason I'm not going to go into detail is because there's a 50-50 chance that one of the hosts of the podcast that I was editing listens to this show, and I don't want to make them feel bad. But my cry space for today that we are recording this episode is definitely podcast editing.
I have to say I also hate podcast editing, but it's mostly me forgetting to mute my mic in between when I talk and blowing my nose and eating chips and stuff. So I think this episode should be pretty good because I was very on top of that.
That's my favorite part of the show.
There's only one moment where I dropped something that skittered across the floor.
I was gonna say I did the Invincible episode last night in a frenzy because I realized, oh shit, it's supposed to come out today. And there's a point where it sounds like Emily just throws something across the room.
Oh,
I think she probably just set something down on her desk and the mic picked it up.
Oh.
But it really was Jesus Christ, what was going on?
Oh,
there?
I have no idea.
I don't know either, but it's lost to time because I deleted it from the recording. So,
but yeah,
podcast editing is bad.
Yeah, no one should do it. If you
they should have told you how bad it. They should tell you how bad it is before you start podcasting for the first time, but they never do. They're like, audio editing is a cool and marketable skill. No, it's not.
I think the way to do it is to like pretend you're releasing the show and tell your co-host you're releasing the show.
Yeah.
Another new episode, but really you're just talking and there's no podcast.
Yeah,
you're just having conversations with your friends.
Yeah, and you guys do plug, and then every week during the plug segment, you're like, okay, I guess.
You can, I already follow you on Twitter, but give me your Twitter handle one more time.
Okay, I'm writing it down again.
Speaking of, if you would like to follow this show on the internet, you can do that at Crying Book Club. You should rate.
We totally release episodes. Every episode has an audio file that gets uploaded on proper release.
And review us 5 stars.
You can call me an audiophile
on your podcasting platform of choice. If you would like to follow Jean-Luc online, you can do that at Mountain Dew Liker on Twitter or Letterboxd at JL Botbill. Alex can be found at Alex Hansiak on Twitter, and I can be found lots of places. At Impandanana on Twitter, at on Letterboxd, at Pandabor on Twitch, at Pandabor, and the following podcast, Imagine Me and You Should Know the Fresh Podcast Market, and that looks terrible. So that does it for Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, I guess. So it's time for us to take off.
So true.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You guys think it'd be cool if I got a tattoo that just said Ramona on my chest?
Yeah. If you do it, I'll get a matching one.
Hell yeah. We have been talking about getting tattoos, so that might be the... Jean-Luc hasn't said anything, but he's in. Cool.
I would not get a Ramona tattoo on my chest, but I'm down to get matching tattoos.
Yes!
But it would not be that.
We got him, boys.
It's a cloth.